More analysis on what exactly is happening in Iran. I'm joined in the studio now by Potkin Azameh. He's an Iranian blogger, of course based here in London. Potkin, how do these protests compare to the previous demonstrations we've seen in the last 12 months or so?
In the previous 12 months or since the election results?
Well, really, since the election results.
I think one thing you could definitely say is that the movement is becoming more and more radicalised. This is a movement that started by asking, "Where is my vote?" Today, the predominant slogans being chanted was specifically directed against the Supreme Leader. There was death to the Supreme Leader, down with the Ali Khamenei, specifically targeting something which until very recently was a red boundary that even prominent dissidents didn't want to cross.
Well, presumably that's going to mean plenty of arrests then.
A lot of people have been arrested, and interestingly, I was reading one of the people that's been arrested is a student who's actually the son of a former minister of Ahmadinejad, the minister for heavy industry, and his son is amongst the people that's been arrested. But it seems that, like I said, because the movement is becoming so radicalised, nothing seems to be working. No amount of brutality seems to be working, and no amount of them trying to stop the flow of information is working.
Well, I wanted to ask about that because obviously we've seen in previous times attempts to stop information getting out, and that the internet, YouTube, Twitter have been widely used. How successful have the authorities been in trying to clamp down on that? I mean, it is a pretty difficult thing to do, isn't it?
Well, this time they really went out of their way. I mean, apart from the usual tricks, you know, the mobile phones being banned, the internet being slowed down and disrupted and everything, they stopped the permits for the foreign journalists between 7th and the 9th. Even the public phone boxes outside the universities where the protests were, they were wrapped in plastic bags to stop people from using them in case they phoned outside and reported from the scene. But despite all these efforts, footage and pictures and news still managed to get through. And I think it's really apt to quote what Mousavi said before today, that they're trying to put up a barbed wire fence to stop the flood. You know, barbed wire fence being a harsh-looking thing, but obviously it's ineffective in stopping a flood being the flow of information.
But what exactly are these demonstrators achieving? We saw that the huge demonstrations, as you said, in the post-election protests, they then died away. They were clamped down and they died away. Presumably this will happen again, that the protests continue, you know, maybe tomorrow. I'm not sure whether they're going to come out on the streets tomorrow, but they're going to die away. What exactly are they achieving?
See, we've had 3 revolutions in the last 100 years, and they've been violent revolutions. And I think we've come to a conclusion where we think a violent revolution doesn't necessarily lead to a more just system, to a better system. So this time the movement is determined to keep it peaceful, and the power of peaceful protest shouldn't be underestimated. The moral victory at the end of all this, when the most brutal Basijis or the riot guards that see innocent people, defenceless people being beaten up, become affected by all this. Every Basiji, yes, they do. See, this is what I was coming to. The result of all this has been a massive collapse of support around the Supreme Leader, to an extent that someone like Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi today said that the whole elite, the whole establishment is at war, and we need to have a ceasefire, because every Basiji, every riot guard, they have nephews, they have relatives, they have sons and daughters who are being beaten up in other protests by other Basijis, and they get affected. They see these people that, you know, these are good people. There's no reason why they should be treated like this. And recently there was a Basij week, and you know, they just about managed to pull around 10,000 Basijis, and that was it. That was the extent of their support. There's been a massive collapse of support around the Supreme Leader. So, you know, let's not underestimate. I know it's frustrating. I know it takes a long time, but there's a lot to be said for peaceful protests. They take a long time, but I think eventually something much better will come out of it.
All right, Potkin Azameh, let's leave it there. Good to get your thoughts though on the issue. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Now, US
البته بینندگان ما همه ملیت‌های ایران هستند، ولی با سپاس از شما که انتخاب ویژه کردید. پتکین عزیز، اخیراً شنیدم وبلاگ شما برنده یک جایزه بین‌المللی شد. ممکنه در این مورد توضیح بدین؟